This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today is the chief geologist for Lion Rock Resources, Dr. Jeff Hrncir. Jeff, finally, it's great to have you on. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Listen, I want to start with your background. I mentioned that you were chief geo, but honestly, you wear a lot of hats for Lion Rock. The doctor title is definitely one that sticks out to me for this reason. Your background is specific to this project and the geology of this project. And so when I look at your neighbors and I see Homestake and I see 42 million ounces of gold produced, and I look at the tin, the high grade tin that was produced, and I look at the high grade lithium that exists all over this property, how the heck does this stay a secret or untapped for this long? There's historic production. And I want to talk about that, but I want to start with your background because I know that plays an important part as to how this was kept a secret for so long, right?
It does. It does. Yeah. So I think as we become apparent in our conversation today, I'm a geologist by background and training. I come from a family that, while they're not necessarily geologists, we have kind of been around the mining business for a very long time. And so my whole life, I knew I was going to be an exploration geologist. My dad was actually president at South Dakota School of Mines, just outside the Black Hills. And so I've been deeply connected to this community of geologists and engineers and miners here in the Black Hills basically my whole life. And so when it came time to do my master's work and ultimately my PhD, I really, really wanted to study the rocks in the Black Hills, study why is there so much gold in these rocks specifically. Other people have looked at the geology before, but it's never been from that angle of why is there so much gold? Could there be any big things left and where might they be hiding? How could the geology help guide us to that? And so I spent years doing that stuff in grad school and then came away with this impression that the Black Hills really are one of the last great search spaces in the world, specifically for gold, but for some of these other things as well.
Now, when you say in the world, and again, this is an educated take. It's one thing for me, I'm a non-geologist. I see the grades, right? I see the tin grades, the gold grades, the lithium grades. And as a shareholder, a bias shareholder, as an investor in the company, I get excited. I can't wait. But then you add the fact that it's on private land, that it's in the US, that the permitting is fast tracked. How does this stay private up until recently for so long?
Yeah, I think it gets down to the fact that it's on private land and the same family has owned it for over 100 years, and they've never actually done a formal exploration deal with a company to come in and explore it. Over the years, some various lessees have come in and they've taken a little bit of tin out, a little bit of tantalum. Nobody's ever explored the gold potential of this property. And so this is the first time that this little island of private land in the middle of this phenomenal district with all this potential is ever going to be explored. We're going to be the first people to ever explore it using modern techniques and modern thought.
That's absolutely incredible. And for context, for everybody that's listening, I just want to provide some underground gold, historic underground gold results. 61 meters of 5.15 grams per ton gold, right? With a
Yeah.
3.5 kilometer shear zone strike length that's just waiting to be tested. I want to start by talking about the gold potential. And we'll go one at a time. We'll talk lithium and we'll touch on tin just a tad bit at the end. But the gold potential, can you speak to the I don't want to put an exploration target on it because it's never been explored with modern day technology, but I would like to get a sense of the scale of what could be there because the grades and the widths of mineralization, the historic ones, stick out to me like a sore thumb.
Oh yeah, no, and they do to me as well. And a lot of that was difficult to put together. They're from very old reports that are not public information. We dug them out of archives. But putting that whole story together, the property just lights up for its gold potential when you start piecing all those bits of information together. And when you take a step even further back, the Tinton district that the Volney property is situated in and kind of forms the core of that district was originally known as a placer gold camp. So in the
Hmm.
1870s, 1880s, these guys were out in the creeks and gulches mining all of the loose placer gold nuggets and flakes out of the gravels, and they produced at least 250,000 ounces, maybe in excess of 400,000 ounces. Every little gulch draining the central ridge line that runs up the middle of our property yielded placer gold, including nuggets up to 28 ounces. And it's just inconceivable that that gold does not come from basically the center of the property, from this topographically high ridge. And during the early 1900s, when people were exploring the tin potential of that deposit, they drove these tunnels and shafts into the hill. And while they were trying to exploit the tin resource, they happened to pass through these gold zones, and that's where these historic numbers come from. They didn't even care about the gold; they were looking for the tin. But for us today, those are just incredible widths and grades, especially sitting at basically surface. People are scouring the world looking for 50 meters of 5 grams. And these days, you usually have to go a kilometer underground to find something like that. But for us, it could be sitting there basically at grassroots.
How do you approach methodically vectoring in towards the source? Because the numbers that you just cited in the Colts is like those numbers are insane, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
if you come anywhere near the source, this has the potential, just as a gold project, um, to be just absolutely phenomenal. How do you vector in methodically to try to locate that source? And you touched on it a bit. I mean, you mentioned um, being at surface and how you would be surprised if it wasn't on top of where you described. How do you vector towards that?
Yeah, so exploration to my mind really has three steps. Step one, identify what you're looking for. What are you trying to find? Step two, identify a place where that logically could be. But then step three is the most important one. And I think this is where a lot of explorers kind of fall off the track is you have to aggressively collect your own primary data. And so we've been doing that for the last year. We've done a property-wide rock and soil geochemistry program on a really, really tight grid that's enabled us to see in incredible detail where the gold is and is not. We've completed aerial geophysics over the property, so we can now marry the geophysical response of mineralization to what we see in the soil and rocks. So we now have, in 3 dimensions, because of the inversions we can do on this geophysics, we can actually see all of the blobs of potential gold mineralization, every single one of them. And because we're located on private land and the permitting process is so easy and streamlined, we can put a drill right down the throat of every single one of them. So we're going to start with our best target first, which is where those historic numbers were. It's where the gold and the rock programs have continued to show that really is the best gold anomaly on surface. And it's really significant. What's impressed me is just how big it actually is. It's about 100 meters wide at surface. That particular pod of mineralization is about 450 meters long along strike. So if those kind of grades hold up, we could be looking at something really special just in that one target.
When you say really special, it sounds like millions of ounces. I'm just doing the math here, right? 100 meters wide, 450 meters, anything
Yeah,
like the
exactly.
historic
Yeah, every
grades. It's
100 meters you could prove that it extends down through drilling. Yeah, no, this thing could reach multi-million ounce pretty quickly. And that's the potential of this district, frankly. When you look around the world at all these great orogenic gold camps, like things in the Abitibi, things in eastern goldfields in Australia, there's never just one giant deposit. They're always surrounded by a halo of large, significant things. And so the Homestake is just really weird to have this 42 million ounce producer sitting there in this district with basically nothing else known. This is a district that credibly has the potential to produce multiple 10 million ounce deposits, a lot of 5 million ounce deposits. That missing halo is really what we're looking for around Homestake, but they could still be world class discoveries in their own right.
absolutely. Now, that's just the gold. I happen to believe that lithium is bottoming, and I've been wrong about this for the last year, by the way, but
Yeah,
it'll
yeah,
bottom
yeah. I mean,
eventually.
me too.
Yeah, it'll bottom
Yeah.
when it bottoms. I mean, the supply demand fundamentals are clear. How long China can go ahead and play the interim game of flooding the market with cheap supply, who knows? But it will turn. I'm absolutely convinced of that. And anything in North America, especially on private land, right, is going to fetch a premium. I've spoken to other geologists that have been on the property and about the lithium potential, and they walk away just flabbergasted about the grades, the widths, and what's potentially there. So when we talk about maybe a world-class gold deposit on private land in America, look, that's enough for me to say, here, take my money, right? But now you're also telling me that there's a potential for world-class lithium grades and deposits on private land. Can you talk about the lithium? Because it's rare. It's rare, Jeff, that we get potentially world-class gold and world-class lithium all on the same small property.
Oh yeah, exactly. And like you said, sitting in the geographic heart of North America next to infrastructure. We're 10 miles from rail. I mean, it's an incredible find. And honestly, that's what drew the Lion Rock team to the property in the first place. We started the negotiations with the landowner starting down this track of getting the property when lithium price was going crazy 3 years
Sure.
ago, 4 years ago. And it really did stand out as like the best lithium opportunity in North America for the Lion Rock team to pursue. There was a lot of lithium expertise on the team.
Yep.
And yeah, these pegmatites, they've just never been systematically explored. Everyone has commented that they're lithium bearing. A few people excavated, a couple tons of it during World War II to supply lithium for the war effort. But nobody's ever done that systematic sampling that you need to do to prove that there's an ore body there. And so we showed up on site and we started sampling and started seeing 3, 4, 5% lithium oxide all over the place. We then last year started mapping for the first time. The property hasn't even been geologically mapped before. We don't even know how many pegmatites there were. We ended up mapping over 35 significant pegmatites, greater than 10 meters width. We sampled every single one of them in the course of mapping, and they all yielded values over 1%, up to 4 to 5%. So these are all high-grade lithium pegmatites. All we need to know now is there tonnage to this? Is there an economically viable deposit? The grade is certainly there. The grades are really impressive to me. I mean, everyone in a world where 1.5% is a
Yeah.
great economic grade, to have relatively large pegmatites that potentially have decent volume at 4%. I mean, it's almost concentrate grade for lithium. And it's there at surface, like these gold targets. And there's only been, I think, 8 historic drill holes drilled during World War II, and the deepest one only went 50 meters below surface. And some of those holes yielded lithium intercepts.
So we know it goes down at least to 50 meters, right?
Right. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And hopefully they'll go down a lot farther. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, this is outcropping.
Yeah, outcropping. And some of these pegmatites are large. They're 700 meters long. They're up to 300 meters across. The lithium, the 4% lithium zones within them are 100 meters across within those pegmatites. These are big things. It's not a single spodumene crystal in a 10-meter wide dike like you see in a lot of these other junior companies. These are big pegmatites.
I don't want I don't want the audience to be overwhelmed by the abundance of like richness in the mineral system, but I got to touch on the tin, even just briefly. The historic tin production and the grades are ridiculous as well. Can you just speak to that here a bit?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and candidly, I don't know much about tin, and
Me neither.
until we started down this, I never really met other geologists even before this process that we that knew much about tin anyway. But the the Volney project is situated in the Tin mining district, and it's so named because it was one of the most productive tin districts in the United States historically. In fact, the Rough and Ready tin mine on the property was the single
Yep.
most productive tin hard rock mine in U.S. history. And there's tin in all of these lithium. So we're sampling these pegmatites for lithium. Tin, tantalum, niobium, these other minerals are present in them. And especially around the tin mine, you can actually go out and pick up cassiterite crystals up to the size of your fist. That to me, that's really unusual
Yeah.
as well. So when we're drilling these pegmatites, all of those metals will get assayed for. There won't be a dedicated tin program, lithium
Yeah. Yeah.
program. We're going to drill the pegmatites. We'll assay for all those, and we're just going to see what the grades are going to end up being on things like tin and tantalum. We know they're there, and we know that they're there in such concentrations they were mined historically. So, what kind of a resource can we put together now through drilling?
I've been trying to chase you down here for a couple of weeks. You've been in the field doing the work. Happy shareholder, by the way. So keep up the great work. You're in
Very
the
good.
field now. What comes next?
What comes next? The finalizing the drill permit. So that we're about to be fully permitted for 78 platforms, up to 8 holes a platform. To put that in perspective, that's more potential drill holes than all of the other explorers in the district combined for the last 5 years. So it's an aggressive program, but we think the property warrants taking a lot of swings, drilling a lot of holes. And so we'll be ready for that. We have all the logistics settled. We have our whole office and core shed set up. All the personnel have been hired. The logistics down to getting the water source for drilling, the water truck drivers, all that's ready to go. And I anticipate within weeks, we hopefully will be drilling our first hole on the
I,
Volney
I
project.
I hate to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you for the crystal ball. What are you expecting to see once those assays start coming back?
Yeah, so hopefully by August, September, hopefully by August, maybe early September, we'll start really getting assays back in mass. And I'm a gold guy specifically, so
Yeah,
maybe I'll address the gold.
let's do it.
I really hope to see widths and grades like we see in those historic reports. Those reports were done by very credible geologists. They might be 100 years old, but they
Right.
were done by the state mine inspector, the head of the geology department at the South Dakota School of Mines. These weren't just random guys offering an opinion. And the work that we've done has shown that there's values up to 189.5 gram per ton in boulders sitting in that golden soil anomaly that's 100 meters wide. So I hope that we can actually almost from grassroots cut 100 meters of 5 grams. I think that's possible on this
Ridiculous.
property. And that is a bit of geofantasy, put a big asterisk on it, but
Yeah,
the
yeah.
geology has supported that kind of a target for now.
Well, look, if I get 50 meters of 2.5 grams, I'll still be a happy shareholder.
That's
So
right.
I'm
I really
rooting
like to
for.
hit that 100 gram meter kind of threshold that I know a lot of people look for, because once you start seeing 100 gram meter type intercepts, the thing's probably an economically viable deposit. So I'd
Yeah,
really like to cross that mark and then just see how big it gets from there.
yeah, those ounces add up quick at that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Jeff, it's been an absolute pleasure. Well worth the wait. I want to thank you for your time. And man, I hope you and I are chatting here in the following weeks and months talking about the vision, the plan, and then the results, right? Which is the
Yeah.
proof proof is in the pudding, right? We'll see what the pudding is.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Gerardo.
All right.
Bye.
Hey everybody, Gerardo Del Real here. If you're enjoying the content that you just saw, you can let us know in 3 simple steps. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please share across your network and on social media. Take care, everybody.